Amazing secret exposed, billionaire frozen in fear after housekeeper's surprising warning. Jacob Harrington strode through the crowded streets of Manhattan, his tailored suit a sharp contrast to the frenetic energy of the city that never sleeps. A self-made billionaire at 45, he had clawed his way to the top of the tech industry, but tonight, anxiety coiled tight within him like a viper ready to strike. The flickering lights of skyscrapers felt like taunting beacons of success, yet, each luminous window reflected shadows of his isolated reality. He was untouchable, powerful, but at what cost? As he rode the elevator to his expansive penthouse, the numbers ticked upward, but his mind raced downward into a spiral of worry. Board meetings, quarterly figures, and internal reports flooded him, demanding his unwavering attention. Had he sacrificed too much for his empire? The echoes of his father's words about family and integrity lurking within the recesses of his mind filled him with unease. The ambition that propelled him had turned into a relentless ache, gnawing at his conscience. The final ding of the elevator was jarring, and he stepped into a world of luxury that felt like a gilded cage. That evening, after yet another late night, Jacob encountered Maria, his longtime housekeeper, in the dimly lit hallway. Her normally warm smile had been replaced with a furrow of concern, stopping him in his tracks. "Mr. Harrington," she said hesitantly, "you need to look deeper into the company's finances. There's something wrong." Her words struck him like a lightning bolt, and all at once, the elegant facade of his life cracked. "What are you talking about?" he managed, his voice betraying a mix of fear and disbelief. He felt a wave of suffocating panic surge. Could the empire he'd crafted with tenacity be crumbling from within? Jacob's heart raced at the thought of betrayal lurking in the shadows of his trusted circle, as hidden fractures threatened to splinter the world he'd built. Maria's unwavering earnestness knocked him off balance. He'd always seen her as just an employee, but in that instant, she became something more, a harbinger of impending doom. He hesitated, mind racing with possible scenarios. Who could it be? The betrayal felt personal, as if his ambition had not only overshadowed his values but alienated those around him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Like Maria, he was grappling with impossible choices, steeped in complexity. With financial stability etched in every detail of his business model, a blackmail plot loomed over him, one that could obliterate everything. A sense of urgency pushed against him, the clock ticking down on revelations that could overthrow his world. In the pit of his stomach, a darker thought festered. Had his relentless pursuit of success numbed him to the core values that once guided him? Jacob clenched his jaw, staring out over the sprawling Manhattan skyline, realizing it represented everything he'd sacrificed. In that moment of clarity, a fleeting whisper of integrity, he wrestled with the intense pressure enveloping him. He longed for family, loyalty, something beyond the material. But the darkness tightened its grip. Just then, his phone buzzed violently against the desk, delivering a message that could obliterate his gilded empire. As his heart sank, he stood on the precipice of confrontation. Would he dare to explore the truth that risked unraveling his entire existence? Jacob sank into the plush leather chair in his home office, an oasis of comfort tinged with dread. The city outside twinkled with life, yet inside, the air was thick with urgency. His hands hovered over his laptop, uncertain of where to direct his instincts. Should he dig deeper into the company's finances, as Maria suggested, or confront the possible betrayal that had begun to fester within his close-knit circle? The message still echoed in his mind, a summons to face the darkness head-on. With a deep breath, he opened his financial tracking software, the screen illuminating numbers and charts that now felt laden with potential deceit. As he scrolled through the reports, a knot tightened in his stomach, discrepancy sparked like flares, and knots of worry began to unravel at the seams. How had he allowed himself to become so disconnected from the very heart of his business? Jacob had once been obsessed with every detail, hand-on, tirelessly reviewing figures and insisting on full transparency. Somewhere amidst the whirlwind of growth and ambition, he shifted into a passive observer, delegating authority yet failing to ensure accountability. A chilling realization swept over him: had his rise been built on not just ambition but also complacency? He quickly jotted down irregularities with a fierce intensity, each figure becoming a thread in a tapestry of mistrust. The fear that it might point to betrayal drove him, and an unexpected warmth flickered within. With diligent determination, he was unearthing buried insights that ignited his passion once more. This challenge was reframing his reality, not merely a threat but an opportunity. In between analyzing figures, he couldn't shake the feeling of Maria's unwavering gaze upon him. A housekeeper's intuition was rarely taken seriously, but she had seen him. The realization struck him: he neglected the human element, allowing wealth and status to cloud the connections with those around him. How many times had he bypassed her contributions, assuming they were inconsequential? A newfound respect grew. He thought of how many hours Maria spent managing the household, her loyalty steadfast, yet he had only valued her based on the tasks she performed. This was not just about company finances anymore, this was his moment to reevaluate at a fundamental level. The promise to change was forming, transforming dread into resolve. Jacob decided to arrange a meeting with his upper-level management team. He needed clarity but also accountability. No more passivity. He confront them with the findings and demand honesty, ensuring that nobody within his circle felt like they could manipulate the trust he had built or undermined in them. There was a tremor of fear at the prospect of what he might unravel, but beneath that sat a palpable sense of determination. As the clock ticked dangerously close to midnight, he drafted an email summarizing his findings and opened the calendar application on his device. He needed to act fast, to regain control, to realign with his core values. Just then, a new message pinged on his phone, the screen lighting up with an unknown contact, the words igniting an ice-cold rush through him: "We need to talk. I know what's happening in your company." Jacob's breath hitched as possibilities spiraled out of control in his mind. Would this conversation lead to revelation or destruction? One thing was certain: the pieces of his life and his company were teetering at the edge, and he stood ready to make a choice. Would he embrace the truth, however painful, before it consumed him entirely? The foundation of everything he built was in jeopardy, and it was time to seize the moment. He took a deep breath, determined to face whatever came next, knowing that the path to redemption had just begun, and it was nothing short of terrifying. Jacob's heart raced as he stared at the message on his phone. The anonymity of the sender heightened his anxiety, setting off alarms in his mind. Part of him wanted to dismiss it, to shut down and retreat into the cozy confines of denial. But he could no longer afford to hide. He took one last glance at the scrolling numbers on his laptop, their stark reality taunting him. With a decisive swipe, he closed the screen and rose from his chair. The plush leather that had cradled him in comfort now felt like a binding, imprisoning him in complacency. Leaving the office, he moved through his home with a newfound sense of urgency. Each step echoed his resolve to confront not only the dubious dealings of his business but also the moments of neglect in his personal relationships. Disregarding the nagging whispers of doubt in his head, he reached for the doorknob of his front entrance, ready to step out into the night. The cool air hit him like a splash of cold water. Jacob's mind raced with the implications of the conversation he was about to have. He needed clarity, and he needed it fast. The idea of approaching the unknown sender both thrilled and terrified him. Would they offer insight or plunge him deeper into uncertainty? His car whisked through the quiet streets as he recalled Maria's intuitive observations. She had been an integral part of his life, though he had failed to truly recognize her contributions. The irony struck him: he had been so engaged with numbers and projections that he overlooked the human connections that sustained his world. A sudden pulse of guilt surged. There was a deeper betrayal than the financial irregularities blooming within the business, his betrayal to the people who mattered. The recipient of his inevitable confrontation loomed closer, yet instead of dread, determination surged through him. It was time to recapture the essence of what he once stood for: integrity and connection. This unknown source could either tear him down or propel him toward the truth. As he navigated through the city, Jacob's thoughts crystallized into a plan. He would confront his management team, urging them to cultivate an environment of honesty. More importantly, he envisioned extending that same vigilance to his personal life. He mentally noted to schedule a dinner with Maria, a chance to apologize for neglecting her insights and listening with new ears. He parked outside a small, dimly lit cafe where he agreed to meet the messenger. As he entered, the doorbell chimed, and the comforting aroma of baked bread filled the air. The atmosphere became palpable, charged with possibility and a tinge of fear. He spotted a figure in a corner booth, shrouded in shadow. With cautious steps, he approached. Upon closer inspection, he recognized the silhouette, someone he thought was aligned with his interests. Heart pounding, he braced for the conversation. Realization washed over him: this was not just about numbers anymore, it was about unveiling the very fabric of trust and loyalty. The truth that awaited him could reshape everything he thought he knew. Jacob slid into the booth, locking eyes with the individual across the table, each heartbeat a reminder that every choice now mattered. The air thickened with unspoken drama, and as he opened his mouth to greet the familiar face, a question flickered in the recesses of his mind like a haunting echo: what lies had been woven into the very foundation of his empire? The moment hung heavy between them, electric with anticipation for what was to come. Would this be the moment that changes everything, or would it lead him spiraling further into chaos? And as he leaned forward to ignite the conversation, he found himself questioning his own strength to bear the weight of the truth awaiting him. Jacob felt the weight of the moment suffocating him as he stared into the eyes of the person opposite him. The familiarity that once fostered unity now felt like a rift. Alex, his former confidant, wore a veneer of casual indifference, but Jacob recognized the tension radiating from him, a testament to shared histories and unfulfilled expectations. "Glad you could make it," Alex said, his voice unsettlingly calm. Jacob noticed how the words barely masked the underlying anxiety. He hadn't come to engage in pleasantries. This was a reckoning. "Cut the small talk, Alex. What do you know?" Jacob's tone was sharper than intended, tinged with desperation. He had crossed the lines of complacency and self-deception, now he demanded answers. With an approving nod, Alex leaned forward. "You're in deep, aren't you? The numbers don't lie, Jake. The financials are unraveling, but it's more than that." There was a pause, a theatrical silence that amplified Jacob's growing unease. "You thought you could compartmentalize everything, but it's all connected, especially your people." The words acted like cold water splashing over his head. "What people?" Jacob asked, though a suffocating dread knotted in his stomach. This wasn't ignorance, it was a refusal to see the threads connecting his professional integrity with personal loyalty. "Maria," Alex said bluntly. "She's been a voice of reason you keep sidelining. Do you really think that you can push the human side of your business away without consequence? It's coming back to haunt you." Jacob's thoughts spiraled. Maria, a source of support, a balance to his numbers-driven mind, had been treated almost as a nuisance. He could feel the guilt creeping in. His neglect had jeopardized more than just their friendship, it had undermined the very foundation of his life. "How do you know all this?" "That's not what matters, Jacob. What matters is that you start listening before it's too late." The gravity of the conversation pressed down on him. Could he still turn this around? The thought of rebuilding connections, repairing the fractured relationships, thundered in his mind. Yet, the weight of Alex's warning grounded him. Would confrontation yield reconciliation, or push everyone further away? People believe in you. They want to trust you. But if they sense that you're blind to what is happening around you, everything will fall apart, Alex continued, his words slicing through Jacob's defenses. As frustration bubbled inside him, Jacob realized it was time to confront reality. The thrill of risk was no longer compelling, it was the imperative of salvaging his integrity, both personally and professionally, that seized control. He could make a difference, piece by piece, starting with Maria. "You're right," Jacob admitted, his voice trembling slightly. "I've been dismissive. I'll meet with her, and I need to be honest about where I'm at. But what if I can't fix this?" The uncertainty hung in the air, palpable and uncomfortable. Alex surveyed him with an understanding that felt both reassuring and chilling. "Nothing is ever fixed without fighting for it. Just remember, this is bigger than you. And people will be watching." Jacob left the cafe, the weight of revelation on his shoulders. No longer encased in denial, his internal battle had morphed into a strategy, an urgent spiral of urgency. He needed to act fast. Now, armed with awareness, he had to face the challenge head-on. The fear of loss mingled with the fire of determination. Plans began to crystallize around him. He would not wait for the next crisis to unfold. The return to Maria was daunting, but behind the fear lay a wish for redemption, a chance to turn his business into not just a profit center but a community again. And as he drove back into the dimly lit streets, his mind wandered to confrontation. What other hidden truths lay beneath the surface, lurking and waiting for release? Had he prepared himself to embrace the chaos of honesty? Or would he find himself swept away, unmoored in 20 years of carefully constructed facades? Jacob's heart pounded as he parked outside the office, the glow of the building's lights flickering in the corner of his eye. He stepped out, the cool night air a stark contrast to the boiling turmoil inside him. His thoughts focused sharply. He was determined to reach out to Maria, to listen as Alex had implored him to do. As he entered the lobby, the usual buzz of evening activity greeted him. Employees were winding down, their conversations tinged with relief after a long day. They exchanged pleasantries, unaware of the seismic shift unfolding in Jacob's mind. He had spent too long dictating from his ivory tower, expecting loyalty without investment in the relationships that sustained his empire. Before heading to his office, he passed Maria's workspace. The warm light from her desk illuminated the papers strewn about, her meticulous notes a reflection of her dedication. Without thinking, he stepped inside. "Maria," he called gently, easing into the room. She looked up, surprised. "Jacob? I wasn't expecting you this late. Can we talk?" The words came out less as a question and more of an ultimatum. He needed to confront the damage he had wrought. Maria studied him, her brow creased with concern. "Sure. What's on your mind?" "Everything." He took a breath, the weight in his chest heavy with unspoken truths. "I've been dismissing me," she interjected, her voice steady but betraying a hint of hurt. Jacob flinched at her bluntness. "Yes," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't realize how much I undervalued your input." Why the sudden change? His mind raced. Could he risk showing vulnerability after years of maintaining an image of infallibility? "I had a conversation with Alex. He made me see that I can't keep isolating myself, Maria. The numbers don't mean anything if the team isn't behind me." "Is that all? It feels like you're still trying to fix it with logic." There was an urgency in her voice that pushed him to confront her directly. "No, it's not about fixing it. I need to apologize. I need to understand the impact I've had on you and the team. I want us to move forward together." Maria folded her arms, assessing him. "That's a start, but it's more than just words, Jacob. Trust is earned." As he absorbed her words, he felt the churning of the anxiety that had gripped him for days. Would he lose her respect, or would he find a way to foster a genuine relationship? He couldn't let fear dictate his actions any longer. I understand, he replied. I'm willing to put in the work. Let us discuss your ideas. I want to hear your thoughts on the financial strategies and the team's morale. Her features softened slightly, and he took that as encouragement. Okay, but this is just the beginning. You have to be open to being challenged. Challenge accepted, Jacob said, a twinge of hope igniting in his chest. He felt the first stirrings of renewal, the possibility of a more profound connection, both personally and professionally. As they began to dissect the current projects, Jacob felt a shift within him. Each word shared forged a new bond, a re-established trust simmering beneath the surface. He was beginning to recognize the power of collaboration over isolation, fragments of a revelation he had previously ignored. Yet, just as he started to feel a sense of clarity, his phone buzzed on the desk. The message jolted him back to reality, a cryptic notification about a potential investor, someone who carried significant influence but was rumored to be less than trustworthy. Curiosity sparked, and with it, a surge of trepidation. Would confronting external threats jeopardize the fragile connections he was just starting to repair? The choices ahead loomed larger than he had anticipated, and he realized these were battles not just against numbers but against his deepest fears of inadequacy and failure. What would he prioritize, forging bonds with those who believed in him or securing a deal that could mean a quick fix to his instability? He looked back at Maria, who was focused on her notes. The night was still young, but shadows of doubt crept in as the stakes seemed to climb even higher. It was clear he was about to face choices that could unravel everything he had begun to patch up. Would he stand tall or crumble under pressure? The moment of truth approached with an urgency that twisted knots in his stomach. Would he have the courage to confront this new challenge? The ringing of Jacob's phone cut through the quiet, leaving a jolt of uncertainty in its wake. He swiped the screen, his breath hitching as he read the message. An investor was interested, curious about their latest project, but rumors of unethical practices played like a discordant note in his mind. Too easily, he pictured the dark spiral of temptation beckoning him to play the game he had tried to rise above. How serious is this investor? Maria's voice sliced through his distraction, her expression sharp with curiosity, nudging Jacob back into the moment. Seems like it could be significant, he replied, the gravity of her gaze forcing him to consider the implications. But I need to tread carefully. There are whispers. His voice trailed off, a sense of dread pooling in the pit of his stomach. Maria narrowed her eyes, capturing the nuance of his hesitation. Whispers about what? Or who? Just rumors, but I can't shake the feeling there's more beneath the surface. It felt as if the room suddenly narrowed, the two of them suspended in a shared moment of understanding. He had been hesitant to involve her in his uncertainties, to show weakness. Yet here she was, standing firm. Jacob, you need to decide what kind of leader you want to be. Are you going to chase hollow victories, or do you want something real, something sustainable? Her voice bore the weight of conviction, urging him to reflect on the deeper virtues. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms defensively. I thought I knew. Numbers, projections, that's all that mattered to me. Until now. Maria's tone softened slightly, allowing him a glimpse of the ally she could become. What do you want from this? Not just for the company, but for yourself? The question struck a nerve, unraveling layers of self-doubt Jacob had cloaked himself in for years. He wanted recognition, of course, but deeper still, he craved respect, camaraderie, and the satisfaction of achievement based on integrity. I want to be better. For myself, for my team, he admitted, reveling in the vulnerability that felt strangely liberating. Then why not trust those who want to help you achieve that? She tilted her head, a spark of challenge igniting in her eyes. Facing this investor means more than just chasing a paycheck, it means determining who you want to be. Behind her encouragement loomed the realization that if he moved forward with this deal, he might restore stability. Yet, could he genuinely uphold the integrity he vowed to embrace? Perhaps we could research the investor together? Jacob suggested, swaying between vulnerability and the instinct to protect himself. The prospect of collaboration felt frightening yet invigorating. Or maybe you can set boundaries with them, Maria added, probing deeper. Establish your terms from the start. If there's anything shady in their dealings, don't compromise. Your leadership defines the company's culture. The emerging clarity felt like a shift in the axis of his existence, moving him from a place steeped in isolation to a newfound commitment to transparency. Trial by fire is not the answer to instill leadership, but I know I must address this, he said, his voice steady with fresh resolve. If I bring this up with Alex, we could redefine our approach altogether. Don't force yourself to be someone you're not, Jacob. Just lead with honesty. And let me help. This partnership was the catalyst he had long overlooked, pivoting him from an isolated helm to a shared vision. As they crafted a plan, a surge of motivation coursed through him. Yet, deep within, the shadow of past mistakes lingered. Could he ensure a trustworthy alliance without compromising his ideals? Setting the tone for future negotiations was daunting, especially with the whispers following this investor. Tomorrow, then, Jacob declared. We'll examine our options. As he turned to leave, a quiet dread settled over him, reminiscent of a storm waiting to unleash its fury. Was he ready to face the realities of his decisions, the potential upheaval they could cause within both his company and himself? Navigating through this labyrinth of self-discovery merged with professional responsibility, Jacob felt a stumble in his stride. Would he remain steadfast against the encroaching shadows, or would he falter as the stakes escalated? The choices lying ahead promised to challenge him further than ever before. With every moment followed by uncertainty, it became clear, his next move would either define him as a leader or unravel his hard-won redemption. As he stepped out of Maria's office, the choice before him loomed larger than life, and he sensed that the next day would unfurl with a gravity far beyond negotiating terms. It would be a confrontation with the deepest truths of his identity. The clock ticked ominously, foreboding the impending reveal. Everything remained at stake. Would he embrace this new challenge, or lose himself in the dark recesses of compromise? A decision awaited him that would shape not just the company, but his very essence. Would he stand resolute or be swept away by the currents of fear? The morning light seeped through the blinds, casting slants of golden warmth across Jacob's desk. Yet the warmth did little to mitigate the chill that gripped him as he sat down ready to meet with Alex to discuss the investor. Today loomed heavy, layered with anticipation and dread. In the quiet moments before his day officially began, Jacob's thoughts spiraled. Should he open the conversation with the potential terms of the deal or address the rumors first? Each option felt risky, as if he were playing a high-stakes game of poker without knowing the richness of his hand. As he glanced around his office, the artifacts of achievement, a brass trophy, framed awards, the steadfast team photos began to feel like a facade. Julia, the housekeeper, had always watched him intently, and a recent cryptic comment echoed in his mind, "Sometimes, the people closest to you can hide the darkest secrets." He wondered if she had been alluding to the whispers that clung to the investor like a dark cloak. The uneasy feeling in his gut intensified. Attending to his integrity and reputation had become a full-time job, and here he was, on the verge of yet another potential downfall if he approached it incorrectly. Maria's counsel lingered in his mind. Lead with honesty. Could he truly do that? The very thought of navigating through muddy waters without succumbing to temptation felt Herculean. As he stood, pacing the room, he could almost hear the ticking clock become louder, each tick an urgent reminder that he had to confront this looming decision. He pulled up a chair, slid his laptop open, and began scanning recent news about the investor. An unsettling revelation simmered beneath the details. Suits and threats of lawsuits danced around the investor's history. It was as if the walls of his focus were closing in. "Are you okay?" Alex's voice broke through his bleak reflections. Jacob's heart raced, adrenaline spiking. How could he conceal his uncertainty? They were supposed to be equals, but today, he felt more like a student on the precipice of failure. Just reviewing some background information on the investor, Jacob murmured as he diverted his gaze. He could almost picture the headlines, "Investor under scrutiny for past dealings, caution advised." "Did you find anything concerning?" Alex leaned in, eyes narrowing with scrutiny. With each word Jacob spoke, he became acutely aware of the tension thickening the air. "There are inconsistencies, rumors of unethical practices tied to this firm." The weight of Alex's silence loomed heavier than the words themselves. It was as if he had unleashed a truth that could not be retracted. "You have to tread carefully, Jacob. We can't afford to tarnish our reputation," Alex finally replied. This was at the tipping point Jacob had both anticipated and feared. "Right, but we also can't ignore the potential benefits," Jacob countered, wrestling with his own convictions, the grinding of moral fiber against the wheel of ambition. With the stakes laid bare, he could feel the swirling debates inside him erupt into clarity. What if we set clear parameters? Transparency must be the bedrock of this discussion. And if these rumors hold, we walk away. Alex's expression froze momentarily, reflecting a fight against skepticism. "You realize there's a chance we might lose a significant opportunity, right? And what's the cost of that opportunity if it comes at the expense of our values? We have to future-proof this company, Alex, not just financially, but ethically." Jacob's voice gained volume, a surprising infusion of conviction as he solidified his stance. Steeling himself in the face of Alex's expected pushback, Jacob sensed the air shifting. He was finally taking the initiative instead of shadowing interests. "This could redefine our trajectory, Jacob," Alex conceded, the doubt dissipating. If Jacob could embrace his apprehension, possibly even use it as a weapon for clarity, he might discover strengths he hadn't even known he possessed. The realization surged within him, a potential unlocked, ready to be embraced. But the lingering uncertainties were far from resolved. As every fiber of his being reached toward commitment, he couldn't ignore the constant whisper that echoed in his mind. Were he and Maria prepared to stand together against this tide of undisclosed truths? "Prepare for the next meeting," Jacob said resolutely, mind racing with strategy, shadows lurking still in the corners of his understanding. As he glanced out the window, eager sunlight failed to penetrate the heavy sense of foreboding. If success hung in the balance, what choices would he need to make to protect not just his vision but his craft as a leader? Would he emerge from this moment forged anew, or would the echoes of temptation remain a battleground? Just before they parted ways, a chill ran down his spine, stirring the buried fear of hidden agendas. The stakes had never been higher, and a confrontation loomed closer than ever. Jacob knew, tomorrow held the promise of truth, but would he uncover the real identity of the investor, or merely step into a darker labyrinth that risked undoing all that he had fought for? The remnants of yesterday's tension clung to Jacob as he arrived at the meeting with the investor, the anticipation morphing into a weight that pressed heavily on his chest. The polished conference room felt both sterile and suffocating, the glass walls a stark reminder of the transparency he had sworn to uphold. Today was not just about sealing a deal, it was about wrestling with his own morality in the face of overwhelming desire. As he shook hands with the investor, an unexpected nerve jolted through him. The man's grip was firm, exuding confidence that belied the swirling controversies associated with his name. Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that beneath that confident exterior lay a landscape of secrets, a labyrinth of ethical gray areas he could easily tumble into if he wasn't cautious. "Jacob, I've heard great things about your leadership," the investor began, his voice smooth yet edged with bravado. The flattery felt like a veiled attempt to ingratiate himself. Jacob fought the urge to recoil. "Thank you. I believe in building lasting partnerships," Jacob replied, his own voice steadier than he felt. Each word was a choice, each statement a reflection of where he stood on that moral precipice. For every compliment, he could feel the undertow of scrutiny from Alex beside him, eyes narrowed and assessing. As they began to outline potential provisions of a working agreement, Jacob's focus divided not just on the terms being discussed but on the implications of each clause. Could he thread the needle of opportunity while maintaining his ethical standards? He was already questioning whether the seemingly shrewd business decisions being proposed were rooted in pragmatism or something darker. The investor spoke with an innate charm, presenting sweeping visions of growth that tantalized the mind, painting an attractive picture of prosperity. "Imagine what we could accomplish together," he said, leaning forward slightly, his eyes glimmering with ambition. Jacob forced himself to listen without getting lost in the sheen of promise. "What kind of oversight do you have in place for ethical compliance?" Jacob countered, determined not to lose sight of the fundamental values guiding his decisions. He watched for a flicker of discomfort in the investor's demeanor. Instead, the man maintained his smile, though Jacob couldn't ignore the flash of irritation in his eyes. "Businesses must adapt, Jacob. Sometimes that requires flexibility," the investor countered, his tone dipping into persuasive territory. The words crept closer to a threat, cloaked within a veil of casualness. Jacob felt the heat rise within him. Who was this man to dictate the flexibility of his values? "Flexibility shouldn't come at the cost of integrity," Jacob shot back, surprising even himself with the force of his words. It was no longer just business, it was a confrontation, and he was laying the foundation for a boundary. Alex's gaze sharpened, a mix of admiration and concern etched on his features. Jacob allowed the rush of adrenaline to fuel him, the electric thrill that surged from standing firm in his convictions. This was his moment, not simply for business advancement, but for personal revelation. As the investor responded with a hollow laugh, dismissing Jacob's ethos as naivete, the air thickened with tension. Everything inside Jacob stirred, the fabric of his carefully cultivated leadership unraveling against a backdrop of opaque motives. Clarity struck. He was not just here to negotiate numbers but to craft a narrative about who he was going to be as a leader. In that moment, he realized this meeting stretched beyond arithmetic equations of success and risk. It was a defining moment of integrity. He had to choose the side he would stand upon, and it was sunk deeper than the business dealings at hand. As the conversation circled back around to profits and projections, Jacob's mind raced. Could he leave this table not just richer financially, but with his dignity fortified? The tension roaming through the room mirrored his internal dilemma, a battle that could sway his future as easily as the whims of the market itself. Just then, an unexpected sound rang in the silence. The phone vibrated harshly on the table, the name flashing across the screen, a ghost from his past. Maria. Uncertainty crept back in, merging with the residue of doubt as he reached for the device. Would her call shatter the fragile resolve he had built, unearthing fears he had been trying to suppress, or would it lend him the clarity needed to face the growing shadows? The decision echoed loudly. The moment had arrived to confront not just this investor but also the very essence of his own identity. Would he step outside the walls he had so carefully constructed, or would he retreat, allowing temptation to dictate his destiny? Jacob steadied himself, breathing deeply, before pressing answer. What awaited him on the other end could tip the scales forever. Jacob's heart raced as he accepted the call. "Maria," he managed, the weight of the name reverberating through him. He had once known her intimately, their shared dreams now tainted by distance and regrets. The surrounding din of the conference room faded, replaced by her hesitant voice, which felt like an echo in the empty recesses of his mind. "Jacob, I need to talk to you. It's urgent." His breath hitched. The intensity of her tone cut through him like a knife. "What has happened?" The words tumbled out, filled with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. The calls had grown infrequent, each one a reminder of the life that had slipped away while he chased ambition. "I learned something about the investor you're meeting with," she continued, her words spiraling him into confusion. He could already sense where this was headed, the nagging doubt returning with a vengeance. "There's a lot more at stake than just business, Jacob. You need to be careful." "Careful how?" He focused intently, trying to filter out the surrounding noise of the meeting. Alex's brows knitted together, probably concerned about his apparent distraction. But Jacob felt a simmering determination to uncover whatever was brewing at the heart of this revelation. I can't explain everything over the phone, but I found connections he doesn't want you to know about. Things that could compromise you. Jacob's defenses raised instinctively. Did he dare trust this information? The memories of their relationship clouded his judgment. Are you sure? He clung to skepticism, yet the cumulative weight of his gut feelings regarding the investor couldn't be ignored. This could jeopardize everything. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. Her voice cracked, a reflection of urgency cloaked in concern. I never wanted to be the one to come back into your life like this, but I need you to listen. Tension bubbled in Jacob's chest, constricting him further. A foray into ethics now took on another layer of complexity. He had to contemplate defense against a hidden adversary while grappling with a former lover who still held sway over his thoughts. I'll do my best, Maria. Just give me what you have. Right now. Meet me tonight, at the old cafe. The determination in her voice shifted to vulnerability. It's important for you to hear this in person. Reluctantly giving in, Jacob nodded, though aware she couldn't see him. All right. But we need to tread carefully. The vibrations of the phone faded, a disconcerting void left in their wake. Closing his eyes momentarily, he prepared for the potential storm awaiting him. Returning to the meeting, Jacob's eyes flickered to Alex, who had retaken his seat. He wore an unreadable expression. You okay? He asked, concern etched on his forehead. Yeah, Jacob replied slowly, forcing brightness into his demeanor despite the gnawing uncertainty. Inside his head, however, the ambient tension thickened. The prospect of confrontation loomed larger than the investor's sway alone. It summoned conflict with his past. As the investor resumed the discussion, Jacob forced his focus back to the present. The sound of money, projections, and visions of growth ricocheted in his awareness, but he felt detached, swept up in thoughts of the evening. What secrets had Maria unearthed, and what choices would he face once again wandering through the memories that both haunted and once inspired him? While his outward appearance masked trepidation, a flicker of determination guided him. He had reclaimed his voice in the previous moments, and he would not silence it again. The stakes fashioned anew, not only around business but in navigating a past that could threaten to engulf his present. Tonight would reveal not just the identity of his adversary but the depths of his resolve as well. Jacob's mind raced. A fierce, primal part of him knew he was crossing a threshold, whether or not he was prepared. Dusk fell like a curtain as he anticipated the impending meeting. A clash between his ethics and the past waited to unveil itself, forcing him to finally confront what he had avoided for so long. What dangers lay hidden in the shadows? Little did he know, both his professional integrity and personal truth hung by fragile threads, ready to unravel at any moment. The cafe was dimly lit, an amorphous bubble of warmth in the cool night air. Jacob stepped inside, the familiar scent of roasted coffee mingling with lingering memories of laughter and vibrant conversations from years ago. It felt surreal to be back. The cafe that once held moments of companionship now became the venue for confrontation. As he approached the table where Maria sat, the gravity of their impending discussion enveloped him like a thick fog. She looked up, a mix of relief and anxiety darting across her features. Their eyes locked, igniting a flicker of the camaraderie they once shared, but lingering doubts twisted the atmosphere. Thanks for coming, Maria said, her voice a mixture of bravery and hesitation. She gestured for him to sit. I need to know what you discovered, Jacob urged, the urgency in his tone fabricated not just by curiosity, but by the weight of the decisions that hung above him. Taking a deep breath, Maria launched into her findings. The investor, you're meeting him, but there's a web of connections that suggest his dealings are far less than honorable. He's had multiple lawsuits filed against him for unethical practices, Jacob. If you proceed with him without caution, it will not only tarnish your reputation, but it could also lead to legal repercussions. Each word weighted heavily. The investor's facade crumbled away, revealing a looming threat. Jacob's mind raced, replaying moments from earlier that day, the confidence, the charm now tainted with the heavy realization that ambition could lead him into dangerous territory. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he pressed, frustration bubbling. "I didn't have the details until today," she said, her tone steady but her expression faltering. "I hesitated because I didn't want to overstep. But when I heard your plans I had to say something." Her honesty struck a chord in him, igniting echoes of the admiration he had lost sight of amidst his climb to the top. "You did the right thing," Jacob replied, the words escaping before he could contemplate their full meaning. There was a profound sense of vulnerability in that moment as they both faced the reality that had overshadowed their once thriving relationship. They had both been drifting, their bond replaced by silence, yet now stood united in concern. "What are you going to do?" Maria asked, her eyes piercing like daggers. "I'll confront him," Jacob replied, resolve swelling within him. The stakes were too high for half measures. "I cannot compromise myself or my values." The heaviness of the decision settled on him, but it felt liberating rather than burdensome. He thought of the life he had built, the business, his integrity. It was time to reclaim it all. "I need you on my side, not just as a voice of caution but as a partner in maintaining the ethics of this company. Working together, we can restore not just my image, but our connection too." Maria's expression shifted, surprise blending into gratitude. "So, you want me to be involved again?" "More than involved," Jacob affirmed, determination solidifying his stance. "I want us to be partners not just in this fight but in crafting a team that values honesty over hollow success." As they shared ideas and strategies to navigate the impending confrontation, he couldn't help but feel the warmth of renewed companionship, a bond now fortified by shared resolve. They would not just battle externally against the investor, but internally against the ghosts of complacency that had initially driven them apart. Once back in the office, Jacob felt an electric pulse with each step toward the investor's imminent arrival. He was no longer anxious, clarity and purpose coursed through his veins. When the investor strode in, Jacob stood tall, every ounce of uncertainty washed away. "We need to talk about our agreement," Jacob began, his voice steady. "What's the matter?" "You seem different," the investor remarked, a shadow of confusion flickering across his face. In that moment, Jacob saw through the polished veneer. "The rumors surrounding your portfolio concern me, and I refuse to be a part of anything that could compromise my integrity and the integrity of my company. If we are to move forward, we will do so on the basis of complete transparency." The tension escalated, air heavy with anticipation, as the investor's brows furrowed in perplexity. "Are you suggesting that you want to profit because of fear?" The investor scoffed, his arrogance evident. "Fear?" Jacob countered, tempering frustration with clarity. "No, I'm inspired. Inspired to reclaim the values that built this company. I'll ensure accountability all around, or I want to proceed." As the conversation shifted, Jacob felt a surge of empowerment, this, his moment of transformation. He had stepped from the shadows of self-doubt to reclaim not just his business but his personal connections. As the investor retreated, recognizing he had underestimated Jacob's resolve, their interaction became a defining moment of commitment to trust and ethics, two pillars that would renew the foundations of Jacob's empire. When the meeting concluded, Jacob stepped outside, breathing deeply, allowing the crisp air to fill his lungs. Victory tasted sweet, each inhale a reminder of how far he had come from isolation to connection, from ambition to integrity. Maria met him outside, pride shining in her eyes. "You did it," she said, warmth radiating through her words. Jacob nodded, an overwhelming sense of gratitude surging within him. "We did it. Together." Their partnership marked the beginning of not just a professional reconstruction but a resurgence of connection that transcended numbers. They had uncovered deeper truths, the kind that rooted in integrity and shared purpose. It was in this moment that Jacob felt significantly transformed. He had transformed his business ethos while reformulating the core of his relationships. "I think we can build something incredible," he said, hardly able to suppress the smile that crept across his face. They walked side by side, eyes set on the horizon, prepared to face challenges ahead, and reclaim their place together. In that realization, Jacob Harrington found not just resolution, but fulfillment, a testament that honesty and connection are the true measures of success. As Jacob stepped into the future, he understood that his journey had just begun, forged in integrity and partnership, moving ahead with confidence, courage, and purpose. And now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your thoughts and reactions about this powerful conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey. Don't wait even one more second, be part of this community of genuine stories.